To all my gamers and NFT players, Viral Hip Hop News and the Lightest Fair Network have teamed up to bring you something revolutionary in the gaming and NFT space. Go to play.finesse.fun right now to play the season preview of the game Finesse Shadow Warriors exclusively on play.finesse.fun. Don't be the last to be a part of this new technological advancement in gaming and NFT. Play.finesse.fun to play the season preview of the game Finesse Shadow Warriors. Link is in the description box. Let them know Viral Hip Hop News sent you. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's. I think we can segue right into hip hop and hip hop's promotion. Of the drugs. I heard you be outspoken. I'm pretty sure on this numerous times. A lot of the mainstream artists, Dirk, we can go all the way down the line. Promote not only violence but drug use as well. Talking about popping perks, sipping lean. Talk about that a little bit, if you may. How that influences, people mainly in the inner city because they don't have the role models like other groups of people do. So they're influenced more by Little Dirk or NBA YoungBoy or Pooh Shiesty. So talk about that aspect if you can, please.
The imagery of the imagery of black rappers, the imagery of being an NBA player, or the imagery of NFL, the imagery of these men being the only segue to success for young black men is becoming too detrimental. When young Asians and young white folks and young Latina folks think about success, they are not thinking, I need to be an NBA player. I need to be a rapper. They're thinking, oh man, I'm going to major in computer engineering. I'm going to set up a business in a community that has a deficit. I'm going to set up a tax office. They have all these other educational, entrepreneurial thought processes versus our children. Our children dreams. And I will say that, when I was younger, I had all these extensive dreams because I didn't know about like what you could do, what you could be. And sometimes the idea of what's being presented is not the only way to get to where you're going. So I do believe that these young men, Lil Durk and the drugs and the things that they're pushing, these are the things that they're exposed to have some form of access to economic empowerment. And let me tell you how the education system really ruins us. And I'm so glad that I'm here so I can tell this story. When I was in high school, let's just say if you have an interest in math and science, right? But in order for you to really deep dive into the things that you're interested in, your basic needs have to be covered. And as you all are creative men, you all are aware that, I'm sorry, a woman can't get none of y'all's attention when y'all money ain't, where it needs to be. It's like, look, I have to focus. So one of the things that I believe in our community, for example, if young men, young women want to be technical engineers, they want to be epidemiologists, endocrinologists, all these different things, the environment that they grow up in has to take a complete shift so that their brains can get outside of survival mode. If my daughter, who's 5 or 6, and I don't have any children, I'm just speaking hypothetically, but if I have a child who's 5 or 6 and and my energy of struggling is associated in the house, then my daughter is going to her head is going to go down some. There's going to be a lack. She may not be able to focus as much in school. And our environment just sometimes isn't conducive for our youth to take a deep dive into some of their interests. So yeah, it may be easier to go to the studio and rap and do all those things versus, man, I really had a good teacher that introduced me to freaking oxygen and hydrogen on a chart that really sparked my interest to the point that I don't even realize that everything that we produce in the cabinets in our home is some type of scientific process. Like, I need to be involved in that. So our level of success is too associated with too much white supremacy. They are, let me, and I'm going to be quiet because I want to make sure you all have the floor. But
do your thing.
No, it's all you. Yeah.
one of the things I want to highlight to some Black people is the slaves only reference of success was master's house. But the slave never understood that his house was at the cost of his freedom. Like, you cannot look at master's house and say, I got to have that. Because if that's what you're going for, you are going to be, you might as well put the noose around your neck as well. And that explains why you have women in hip hop fully nude, you know, talking about their vaginas as if they're talking about science. You can't live off that. But if master's house is your only goal, then you're going to be naked and on TV and people are going to be clapping for you when this is completely outrageous.
I think that's a perfect time to segue into female women's hip hop today, as opposed to when it began. We had a conversation about that. There used to be role models for these young ladies in hip hop that they could look up to and admire, not just for their lyrics, but for their beauty and for their grace as well. Nowadays, it's way over sexualized, in our opinion. It's something that is nothing compared to what we were accustomed to when it was first when the exception first came. So what's your thoughts on female hip hop and how it's evolved into what it is right now?
Okay, so this is really, I'm glad that you asked this question because I will say that I have some knowledge of the female hip hop. Of course, you got Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, all those people back in the day.
Right.
What's the sister name that had the long braids? Patra. She was one that kind of had style, had the little booty shorts on, but she would be rapping. And it was always a communication amongst men and women. But then there was a thing of self-respect and pride. You know, Queen Latifah, UNITY, who you calling the B, all of those things, right? But then I would say by the time I got to high school, you also had Lauryn Hill, but unfortunately, you always had Lil' Kim. I remember getting Lil' Kim's cassette tape, right? Now, mind you, I'm like in 5th grade, and everybody is talking about like No Time, you know? So I'm like, I'm going to get Lil' Kim's cassette tape. Me and my friends, we went. And my mother, who is a devout Christian, sometimes I think about this now, and I think how owed me a cassette tape because she took my shit and she threw it in the garbage. She was like, and mind you, mama had never even heard any of her lyrics. She was like, she came in the house and she was like, yo, like, I heard about Lil' Kim at the beauty shop. And I was like, mama was like, I heard she nasty. Let me get that tape. And I was like, really? Like, I can't believe this, you know, at the beauty shop. So she took my tape and she threw it away. Now, I'm going to tell you two things. A friend of mine told me that she was introduced to sex early on. And she said that, you know, growing up being introduced to sex very early, she said she felt like Lil' Kim had given her a sense of power through sex, right? Like, well, now it's my vagina. I do what I want, you know, blah, 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 all of that, right? But we're 14. We have to do it, you know.
Right.
It's not for us. So the detriment behind all of the over-sexualization is we try to minimize what sex is, but sex is a power and it's a force and it's an energy. And then when it happens, that's why so much life happens. That's why life happens behind it, because this is something where life is going to be produced, you know. And if sex is improperly managed, then you have addiction, then you have molestation, then you have rape, you have all these negative things that comes from an improper use of sex. And then you have enjoyment that comes from a proper use of sex and being mentally and emotionally healthy to have the encounter, which sex is not for children because of the emotional things that happens behind it. So I believe that the women in hip hop is over-sexualizing themselves, and it's not really a big payout. I think a lot of times somebody may say, that's why you got Lil' Kim, not Lil' Kim, but as you can see, Lil' Kim has aged. She is a mother. The whole, eat my vagina, that world don't last for a lifetime.
Right.
I tell people all the time, show me a prostitute that had a life of sex that's now retired and living her own home and sitting around retired with her prostitution money with her grandkids. And I'll never say anything else about sex. But when it's ill managed, of course, you have a lot of people in burnout and there is no reward behind it. So you have a Lauryn Hill who, she never promoted herself through sex.
Right.
But Lauryn Hill, when you look at Lauryn Hill, ain't nothing about Lauryn look like she burnt out. She'll look like she ain't been and laid on nobody's doctor's table 50 times, because let me tell you something. The biggest reward on the planet is having a sound mind.
Yeah.
Well said.
So we got people promoting sex as if it's a sense of power, but they constantly being defueled and they're becoming powerless. So that's my thing. I think that the promotion of sex requires a responsibility, and the women like to remove themselves from that part, and that's not good.
Well said.
Right. Also, I don't know if you heard this, it was a while ago, but Cardi B, she didn't want her daughter actually listening to her, I think it was the WAP song. How you feel about that as well? Like she'll promote the music, promote the stuff to the young girls, but her daughter, nah, you ain't listening to this.
Absolutely. I feel like that's the hypocrisy of white supremacy. I'm gonna feed it out to a whole bunch of other people, but I don't want it for myself.
Right.
And I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a Cardi B. There isn't much positivity behind what Cardi B represents. Right. So let me just say this right here. A lot of the women in the industry, they promote singleness when they all have boyfriends and husbands. Yeah. Right. I don't know why love is such a hard sell for Black people. I don't know why unity is such a hard sell for Black people. But when you allow Cardi B, this is Cardi B's own admittance. She used to have money for sex, so she was publicly a prostitute. She said that she drugged men for money, so she was also robbing. And then America says, you know what? You're talented enough to, be a spokesperson, to sit down with Bernie Sanders and discuss economic empowerment and judicial issues. Right. I don't get it, but only thing I'm trying to say is Cardi B, it's easy. If white people are paying you to be your lowest self, okay? And the crazy part about it is, if they're paying you, if a teacher was to come inside of a classroom with 15 students and repeat Cardi B, she would be fired immediately. The same society will let Cardi B songs play to those same children going to school and from school, and nobody will fire her. That's the world that we're living in.